I'll call this meeting of the Champaign-Urbana Cable and Telecommunication Commission to order at 3:32-ish on January 21st, 2016. Would you please call the roll?
Yes, Commissioner Lukeman,
Present.
Commissioner Walker,
Here.
Commissioner Cinder,
Here.
Commissioner Folk,
Here.
Commissioner Rosales,
Here.
Commissioner Foster,
Here.
and Commissioner Wadsworth notified us that he would not be able to make it today.
Great. Do I have any proposals for modifications to the agenda?
Yes, I think we're still in need of doing an officer election this year.
I think that's correct. I guess I'd propose to put that under new business.
Yes, I would too.
Okay.
I would move that we add officer elections under new business.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Where would discussion of the upcoming annual report, planning for the upcoming annual report go? Where do you think? I'd also propose we add an item under new business for discussion about planning for that, for the upcoming annual report.
I move that we add that.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Again, that motion also carries unanimously. So with those two modifications, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Great. And we have an agenda. I apologize, we do not have minutes, so we will, I will do that next meeting, hopefully, with both of these sets of minutes. And moving on to correspondence.
Would you like to deal with the cable complaints under correspondence or under station reports?
Let's deal with them under correspondence.
Okay. We had a few this quarter for the first time in quite a while. They are in your packet, and I think they're all pretty self-explanatory.
Jake, I have a question on the third one. The date of the complaint is November 10th, 2015. And under actions taken by cable company, it says they made contact on 05/16. Is that May 16th, or is that a typo of January 5th, or something else?
That's a good question.
It's just hard to get a sense of what I'm really trying to get at is it seems like there's a long and very frustrated write-up here, and then it seems like because city staff reached out, a resolution was found, or it could be interpreted that city staff reached out, but actually it had been resolved months before. So there's a big swing between those two different those two scenarios.
Jason took this one, and I haven't discussed it with him, so I couldn't tell you. But I can find out.
I just noticed that the date 5/16 corresponds to another resolved or action taken item for the first complaint. So perhaps they just got switched around a little bit.
Disembodied voice, do you have any thoughts on that? Thank you. So the recommendation is to follow up with Comcast and find out what possibly this is a copy and paste from the information we received from them.
I think it might be a good idea, if this hasn't been resolved, I think it's a pretty serious complaint. Maybe for anyone who, just to at least have it in the minutes, or for anyone who's watching, the gist of it is that a customer who obviously has a lot of technical experience has found out that Comcast is treating customers differently depending on whether they rent modems from Comcast or buy their own to save money. He's got a lot of detail here, and basically he says there's been a refusal to even discuss the issue clearly. Is this a customer service issue that we have any power to put pressure on Comcast about?
Well, I think that something like this actually would end up falling to the FCC.
Yeah, he mentions that he considers it an issue with the FCC's open internet order.
Mhm.
And he has concerns about the local franchise agreement. So whatever remains of our local agreement, do we?
Well, I mean, there's still definitely a local franchise, but it doesn't. Well, for one thing, it covers cable, and this is an internet issue. But also, I don't think it goes into this kind of detail. This might be covered by the state customer service level requirements. So we could, if there were anywhere to follow up on this in that regard, it would be with regard to what they're doing. It would be regarding the customer service level that they're providing, and there are state requirements as to how long it takes you to talk to a person and what their response requirements are. I haven't read that law in some time, but they might have crossed afoul of that. But really, fundamentally, if they have a policy that's that they consider that Comcast considers reasonable about, if you own your own modem, they're not going to replace it for you, which I think makes sense. They would need the FCC would have to weigh in and tell them that that's not an option. It sounds like he did end up getting it resolved, and it is a fairly technical issue that not very many people would likely run into.
Is there an indication here somewhere that it has been resolved?
It says we were able to make contact with the cable company was able to make contact with the customer on 5/16 and replaced their box.
But as noted by Jason, that's the same text on the first one.
Yeah.
So
I
it
see.
seems that,
Plus,
And
he
replacing
wasn't
the cable
I see.
box doesn't seem to be a resolution to that particular complaint.
right.
Right.
So it looks like
That's
this is
true.
still
Right,
in
okay.
some kind of to be
Yeah.
determined.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks like he wrote this out of frustration, and
Right, and he wrote it
he
on
sub-
11/15.
he submitted this
so,
in
right.
November.
Right.
it's also an interesting opening for a discussion by this commission as to whether your domain covers internet provided by the cable companies or not.
Well, yeah, it's, I guess, open for discussion.
Perhaps even if we don't have some legal power, at least we could have we could offer some support, some pressure, some assistance, anything, because, I mean, this just sounds like something that really shouldn't be happening, and until I got a better explanation from Comcast, I mean, his explanation here is pretty clear and pretty even-handed. But I would like to hear from Comcast, and if we can serve as any kind of support or anything, I would think that would be within our purview.
I mean, his goal is to change his IP address. And is there anything wrong with discussing the details? No, so long as we don't say who it is, it's probably fine. Okay. His goal is to change his IP address. So for the record, the customer's goal is to change his IP address. As a residential customer who owns his own modem, Comcast says he needs to buy a new modem to change his IP address, which on the face of it seems pretty weird.
In fact, I don't know how that would achieve changing his
What it-
IP address.
It would change his MAC address, and then Comcast would give out
Assign
a different address.
But not necessarily one of his choosing.
No,
Right.
right.
If he's just trying to change it to any different address,
I think that's what
Yeah.
his goal was. I think
Yeah.
his goal is to change it to some different address because his address had been blacklisted by
Yeah.
someone. He doesn't say the reason, but that would be one
Yeah.
reasonable reason. It seems weird that would be Comcast's chosen solution to the problem. But if it is, then they're saying that they need to replace that you have to replace the hardware with hardware with a different MAC address to change your IP address. It doesn't seem to me that they are doing anything that is. They're not treating the customers differently. They've just managed to create a policy that is worse for the people who own their own modems. So I can imagine a variety of different policies that would be slightly worse than for the people who own their own modems. Given how infrequent this is, I don't think that you could easily argue that it's a massive conspiracy to try and push people into that, into leasing their hardware.
I think the decision of a customer to purchase their own modem incurs certain risks
Yes.
going along with that, and I think Comcast's position, frankly, is not unreasonable.
If perhaps unfortunate for the
Right.
specific
Unfortunate,
individual.
but not unreasonable.
Yeah. I would suggest if the customer happens to be listening, that they might try turning off their modem for a couple days, which would you probably want to do it for 10 days. Probably Comcast has a timeout on their DHCP leases that would time out. They give it out to some other person, and then when you sign on, might get it again. Or they could rent a modem for a month, and then go back with their other modem. So I don't think that this is probably, in my personal opinion, unless this becomes a pattern, then I don't see any reason to take it up. My guess is that he filed a complaint with the FCC. Though I didn't see it in the list. I didn't get through that entire list of FCC complaints. So, Karen, thoughts?
I guess it's just what concerns me is that even if they have some technical explanation for this policy, it doesn't appear to be a policy that's necessary. And you're supposed to have the option to buy your own modem. Their rental prices for the modems are, I believe, very expensive. They're a huge profit item for them. And even when you call, they say, oh, you can get your own modem. This may be just one of the ways that they give you lip service to that, but discourage you from doing it otherwise. I would like to think that it was that when they offer you the option to buy your own modem, it's really a fair option. And if this is the kind of policy they're pursuing, it looks like they're definitely trying to discourage it.
Do any of the other commissioners have any experience with owning their own modem, and have they found any other items where they seem to be discouraging that practice?
I used to have Comcast service and own my own modem, and I did not have occasion to want to change my IP address, so it never arose.
But were there any other issues that, with things that seemed like it was harder to do because you had your own modem?
On the contrary, it gave me more flexibility than I had with the Comcast supplied modem.
Okay, which also was the case here.
Yeah.
He was able to edit his MAC address.
Yeah.
I actually found it difficult I pursued this a few years ago, and Comcast has a list on their site that is full of arcana. I mean, all kinds of codes. These are the modems that might or might not be compatible. And when I called, they said, you have to go to Best Buy. That's the only place to get them. So I went to Best Buy, and they kind of shrugged their shoulders. They didn't know anything. So I went back to that chart and finally gave up, because, as you said, there is a risk. You pay $100 or so for a modem, and if it's not perfectly compatible, you're out that money. So
Well,
I finally gave up.
the good thing about Best Buy is they have a very liberal return policy if something doesn't work out for you.
Yes. Except when I was out there, I said, Whitney, the guy didn't even know where to start, so it would have
Yeah.
been a total gamble. I mean, I would have been as good at picking one out as she said, the experts at Best Buy will help
Yeah.
you.
So perhaps that is something that we could look into in the future, is developing a list of modems that are compatible with our specific Comcast.
Yeah, an easy-to-use list. I mean, they claim that it's on their website, but there's a list
Sure.
of 30 there with as many as 5 or 6 asterisks after them about if, when, then.
Well,
So
and
after a
also
while, you get frustrated.
And in my experience, often those lists are out of date.
Yes, yes.
All right. I guess we can put that on the list of stuff that we might do that would be helpful. Any other discussions about these complaints?
Commissioner, Chair Folk, just to verify, so you're saying the Cable Commission wants to take on the task of compiling a list of modems?
I'm not saying we wish to take on that task. I'm suggesting that giving guidance to the public on that topic might be something that we could do either with a list or a bulk purchase day or something of that sort. I'm suggesting it might be something we want to do, not that we're committing to doing at this meeting.
Thank you.
I guess you asked earlier about my own experience with buying a modem. I did get mine at Best Buy, worked without a problem. I too asked them about compatibility with Comcast, and they said they all are.
That would make sense given where they're selling them.
Yes.
It would be kind of weird for them to sell a modem that's not compatible.
Yeah.
But there are lots of weird things, so they could still do that. All right. I'll take a minute, since we're on the topic of complaints, to talk about the FCC complaints. So at the last meeting, we talked about how we are no longer getting a comprehensive list of the complaints because now some of them go through the FCC directly. In addition, we've never gotten the complaints from providers other than Comcast. So what I reached out to the FCC and did a FOIA request for all of the complaints related to any of our zip codes on internet, phone, or TV. We got a list of 156 from 2015. I've looked through some of those. A fair number of them were not related to anything that we would be talking about. They were related to things like robocalls and things like that. Probably the majority of them are related to robocalls. But I think I would propose that by the annual meeting we come up with a breakdown of exactly what the total complaints in 2015 were, and whether there seems to be an issue that we want to try and bring up with the operators, either AT&T or Comcast or ITV3.
Yeah, I went through all of those complaints, and as you noted, I found they were mostly unwanted calls. I did mention it to Chris before the meeting, and he might perhaps have something to say about what consumers could do to protect themselves. It's certainly not a phone company problem or a provider problem, but something we just have to contend with today.
Okay. All right. Other correspondences. Did we have other correspondence, Jake? Okay. Moving on to unfinished business. There's nothing on the agenda for that, and I think we tabled the rules and regs from last time. So is there anything else that others are aware of that we need to address here? Okay. Moving on to reports, committee reports. I don't think we have any outstanding committees with reports. Staff report?
I should just note that I've included in here the second half of 2014, our PEG report. It was my understanding that Commission was working on doing the annual report that had been due last July, and this is the UPTV PEG report that would have accompanied that. I have switched the annual report from a fiscal year basis to a calendar year basis for a number of reasons, but I think it will serve us better in terms of multiple uses for this report. So this is just the remainder of 2014 that hadn't been reported on previously. And I also I changed the filters in terms of the programming descriptions. They're roughly, equivalent to what we used before. It's a little bit more granular because I also went by week rather than by month because broadcast schedules are based on weeks and not months. So it's a little easier to manipulate. I might, in the upcoming report that will have all of 2015, which I've just started to work on, I may just report the quarterly figures rather than 52 separate lines of data. So.
Is that the extent of your report? Okay. I had a quick question. When you say staff or member produced or sponsored programs, can you talk about member or staff sponsored programs as opposed to produced?
Yeah, we have members that sponsor programs that are not produced by them, produced elsewhere, but they sponsor their broadcasts. We currently have 3 out-of-state members who sponsor, in those cases, programs that they produce. We have local sponsors for programs that are produced elsewhere, things like Gay USA, Democracy Now. What's the other one I was just thinking of? 9/11 TV. So those are sponsored by local members but produced elsewhere.
Jake, is it correct that no content is sponsored by staff?
Yeah, that's true.
How would it be feasible to either include a column or somehow make it clear the number of hours of sponsored as opposed to produced programming?
Well, this is the single most time-consuming task in my entire year, and I've been doing my best to try to make this a more manageable task.
Okay.
And make sure that the information mining, the data mining, is going to be useful.
Mm-hmm.
And in past, basically, a lot of data mining's been done. It's been looked at once, and then it goes in a drawer.
Well,
I could certainly consider that.
Unfortunately, I think that's probably it's more passing interest than pressing. So.
Yeah, I mean, if I could slice and dice this a million ways, I would. Just because I'd be interested too.
Yeah.
Jake, I just was curious. I'm assuming that there was some type of equipment with transition or issues on weeks 28 and 29.
The Nexus blew up.
Yeah. That's what I figured.
That's exactly what happened. It failed once, Jason got it working, and then it failed catastrophically. So we were pretty good to get back on as quickly as we did. So.
Okay.
Okay. Moving on to Champaign.
Back in December, we did several city staff.
Is your mic on?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Now I can.
Back in December, we did several winter greetings with the city staff. Just last week, last week we did taping of Champaign Connection, so I'm in the process of editing that now. Last week also was a live telecast of the Champaign Public Library Director Candidate Forums, and that was very well attended. We were very happy for that. And I helped Jason out with the MLK video. That's it.
Cool.
Oh, and that PEG report, I gave that to you guys, I think, 2 meetings ago, so you should have it.
And now operator reports. We do have one operator here, though I guess not our franchisee, but an operator nonetheless. Chris, if you would like to join us. Go ahead and introduce yourself, and then.
Do I need to push my talk, or is it on? Okay. I'm Chris Warwick with AT&T. I'm the Director of External Affairs for Central Illinois.
Thank you for coming.
Yes. And Chairman Folk, I received your email asking for a couple things regarding current list of package pricing, any changes to UVerse, and then FCC forward complaints, and then low-income access programs. So I can just go ahead and address those, individually, if that's all right. We do have some packages. We have 6 main packages, and I could read those off to you if you'd like. I mean, we have our lowest package is $19.99, and that's for 145 channels. 175 channels at $29.99. At 240 channels, that's our ultimate package, and that is 240 channels at $39.99. We have an entertainment package at $24.99, and that's 150 channels. An extra package, $34.99, that's 220 channels, and then our premiere is 315 channels, and that is $89.99. But all those are current on our website for folks to get the most current rates. I mean, the ones I read to you, I pulled them this morning, so that's the most current rates that we have for the UVerse packages.
And those are all permanent rates, or are they intro rates?
These are the current offer rates. So those are all offers that are currently out there. So they do change from time to time.
Okay.
So and then regarding the pricing, there was a letter, per requirements that were sent out to both the clerk of Champaign and the clerk of Urbana with some price changes. Those changes were going to take effect on the January 28th bill. The monthly rate for the following UVerse services will increase by $2. That's U Family and U Family All In. That will go up by $2. There's a couple plans that will go up by $3. That's our U100, U200, U200 All In, U200 Latino, and U200 Latino All In. And then there will be one that will be going up by $4. That's the U300, 300 All In, U300 Latino, U300 Latino All In, the 400, the 450, the 450 All In, the U Latino, and the U Latino 450 All In. And then the monthly rate billed for each non-DVR TV receiver has increased by $1, and the regulatory video cost recovery charge will be increased by $0.01 each month. The monthly broadcast surcharge will also increase by $1 in all Illinois markets. This charge is to recover a portion of the amount of local broadcast charges, AT&T, the cost to carry our channels, and customers will have their current UVerse promotions, and we'll have that price continue until the promotion ends or expires. So that information was sent out to again the 2 clerks in the 2 municipalities on December 4th.
Great, thank you.
And then regarding charges changes with UVerse and DirecTV as a result of the DirecTV merger, there are no planned changes at this point, so there's nothing I have to report out on that. I have not received any FCC forwarded complaints. I don't know if there's any in the report that you received, but I have not received any. If I could get a copy of that report
Sure.
before the meeting or before the next meeting, I can also double check to make sure they're on there. And then for low income access programs, as far as UVerse or for cable, those services, we don't have a low income program. For our internet options, I'm sure we have something, but I don't have that information at the time just because this is germane to the cable. So we don't have a particular low price plan for cable or UVerse services.
Okay.
TV services.
You have any, do any of the commissioners have any other questions for Chris?
So, and then just, a couple other notes. We did win the 2015 North American Company of the Year for multi-channel video by Frost & Sullivan, and also the North American Company of the Year for Consumer Communication Services, also by Frost & Sullivan.
Cool. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
great.
I have one.
Yes, sir.
I do subscribe to AT&T.
Thank you.
But do complaints or calls regarding service go all the way to Calcutta?
Do they go to Calcutta?
Yes.
They would go to one of our various call centers. I'm not sure which call centers are active at which times, but if there's any, commission complaints, I know that Jake has reached out to me in the past if there's been an issue, and if any of the commissioners would like to contact me, you guys all have my business card.
Okay.
I'll help you resolve to them.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
coming. So I'll summarize that with regard to the rate plans, that those seem like very good deals. So that's cool. I think it'll be interesting news to the people watching that there are those offers out there. And if they did want to sign up, would you mind giving the website?
att.com.
att.com.
Look under TV, and then they link to have their choice. They can either choose UVerse or we now offer DirecTV as well.
Okay, att.com/ or and then click on TV.
It's right at the top. There's a banner that has wireless TV and then other home solutions that they have for different markets.
Excellent.
Also, for people who subscribe to AT&T services and have previously subscribed to DirecTV, is there any way to consolidate those bills or to otherwise gain an advantage by having those all in one place now?
I think there's always an advantage to bundling your services.
Yeah.
At this point, I'm not aware that DirecTV
Has
that you can bundle your DirecTV bill with our other services.
Okay.
At this point, I'm not aware of.
yeah. Thank you.
Okay. We did reach out to the other two operators, and Art had a conflict. I'm not sure what we heard back from ITV3.
I received no response from ITV3.
Okay. Okay, now moving on to new business, and I recall that we added two items there. The first was officer elections, and we need to elect a chair, a vice chair, and a secretary. Is that correct?
Secretary, clerk.
Clerk? Okay. So if we elect a clerk, then Jake will no longer be our clerk, and the person who calls the roll will not be Jake. Is that correct? Is that everyone's understanding? Okay. Then whoever gets elected to that, they need a list. 'Cause,
which fortunately is available on the web.
All right. I will start the bidding with nominating Dale Cinder for chair. I'm the current chair, and there's just been some expression of a concern about conflicts with me being chair, and so I'm looking for someone else to have that name title. Yeah.
I guess I'd say I'm reluctant, but I would hope someone else would volunteer here, but if that's the will of the commission, I guess I'll do it.
Karen was the other person that I thought. I don't know if I can nominate two people to the same position.
No, I will repeat my feeling that there is no conflict here. I don't know whoever is seeing it. We aren't recommending internet service. If you had a commission of people who had no possible conflict with any media at all in this town, for one, it would probably be hard to find people who are willing to serve and had any knowledge at all. So I will repeat my objection to that, but if you feel that you're being pressured, then I would vote for you, I would vote for Carl, I would vote for both of you together. So we could have co-presidents for all I care. But that is, yes, either one would be a fine choice.
And would you accept the nomination yourself?
No.
Okay.
I've already found two people better than me, so I don't.
Okay. Are there any other nominations for chair? Okay. Would the commission like to vote on Dale Cinder for chair? Well, I'll call a vote from the commission for Dale Cinder for chair. Clerk, if you would mind a couple last times calling the roll.
Sure. Commissioner Foster?
I would vote for Dale, yes.
Okay. Commissioner Rosales?
Dale, yes.
Commissioner Folk?
Yes.
Commissioner Cinder?
I'll pass.
Okay. Discretion, the better part of valor. Commissioner Walker?
Yes, I will vote for Dale.
And Commissioner Lukeman?
Yes.
Commissioner Cinder is now the new chair.
Okay, in that case, I guess we will move on to election of a vice chair. Are there any nominations for vice chair?
Well, perhaps Peter would want to continue doing that. Would that only be half of a conflict?
I think it's a quarter of a conflict because we determined that it was only half a conflict to start out with.
Okay.
I'd be willing, yes.
I second it.
Any other nominations for vice chair? Hearing none, would the clerk call the roll for Peter?
Yes.
For vice chair.
Commissioner Foster?
Yes.
Commissioner Rosales?
Yes.
Commissioner Folk?
Yes.
Commissioner
Oh.
Cinder?
Sorry.
Yes.
Commissioner Walker?
Yes.
Commissioner Lukeman?
Yes.
And Peter Folk is now the vice chair.
We move now to election of a secretary or clerk. First, I suppose we should decide what term we would like to give it. Are there any? Is there any discussion on that topic?
My guess is it's supposed to be clerk because that's what it is now.
Yeah. Okay. Any further discussion?
Was part of the question the term is in what you want to call it, or the term is in the length of the office remaining?
No, the length would be 1 year, as with the rest of the officers.
Even though this is a delayed election?
The election would take place at the same time as the rest of the officers. was what I should have said.
Okay.
For a
Would
term.
that be, are these 6-month terms?
These are
Because-
one-year terms as specified by both the commission rules and I believe the city councils of Champaign and Urbana.
But where I'm digging at is, since this is a delayed election, are we
Yes.
changing the election cycle now to 1-year terms in
No, we would
January?
continue the same election cycle, I believe.
I would suggest we might want to table that question until we can actually look it up.
Yeah, might be a good idea. Okay. Do we need a vote on name of the office, or shall we just move ahead with clerk?
I think clerk is the current name of the office.
Okay,
so.
we'll accept that as the name of the office. Are there any nominations for clerk?
I nominate Chris Lukman.
I would prefer to decline the nomination. I am not very good with the procedure that might be involved in such a nomination.
Maybe we should talk about exactly what the duties would be. Just keeping minutes?
I believe the duties would be keeping minutes, calling roll, keeping track of any voice votes.
Jake, is the agenda something that you handle, or is that something that the clerk handles?
Well, I handle it as the clerk, and this is
Yes.
a new
So
position.
that would be
Mhm.
another
Yeah, I mean,
duty of the
as
clerk.
far as I understand it, I would remain your contact point with city staff. I would be your staff contact. And I should probably talk to the city clerk and clarify exactly what is possible. For instance, I don't think your clerk, if it's not a city employee, would be, could access the city website to post meetings.
Mhm.
So that would be something that I would continue to have to do as your staff contact. In terms of everything else, I think basically you've summed it up. There is the assembly of packets. And again, I could talk to Phyllis about that and see exactly what the protocol would be.
Yeah, if you could do that for us, I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely.
The main sticking block, if I recall, was actually the minutes. Is that correct? That's by far the largest thing that you're.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
part of the whole ball of wax.
Would you be amenable to a clerk role that did not include the minutes, where the minutes were, for example, spread over the commission, and you continued in the remainder of the items?
Yeah, I would feel more comfortable if I could talk to Phyllis first and find out exactly what the parameters are for a non-staff clerk.
Okay.
That would be my suggestion. Perhaps you could assign the duties of secretary to one of your own, and then we can table the question of clerk till the next meeting, just as you've tabled
Yeah,
the other question.
sure.
That makes sense.
So basically, this would be the role of taking care of minutes, and the rest we'd continue as is until another determination is made.
So
Okay.
I will move then that we table the election of a clerk till the next meeting and assign minute-taking to the membership of the commission as follows. Each meeting, we would assign 2 members of the commission to be responsible for producing the minutes for the next meeting. And those members would be expected to either split up the task among themselves or meet together to get it done. The reason I propose 2 is that I've found that, at least in my case, 1 didn't get it done.
So you're proposing basically as a redundancy
Yes.
consideration.
Or team effort. Their choice.
Well, reliability theory aside,
Pretty hard to team up on.
yeah,
minutes.
on a minutes, it either gets done or it doesn't get done.
Well, you could definitely team up. One person takes the first half of the meeting, the second person the second. But anyway, my motion is out there. Feel
Yeah,
free to
it's-
amend.
Yeah. Do I
Or
hear a second?
I like the recommendation, but I agree with, I'm not sure we need to assign two people. Maybe if we just assign one person. I mean, it seems that if we just did one person per meeting to do the minutes, that would be sufficient.
I think it might work if we just all took a turn.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Somebody volunteer at every meeting, and when you haven't done it for a while and everybody's looking at you, it's your turn.
So my motion failed a second.
Failing on a second, yes. So, do I have a motion here to?
So I motion that we, what was it? We table the discussion of clerk to the next meeting, and we assign minutes to one commission member each meeting
On a rotating
basis.
rotating basis.
I like that.
Do I hear a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Volunteer for next meeting.
I would move that we, instead of taking volunteers, we do it alphabetically.
Second?
I second. So it's
All
the
in-
W.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So by next meeting, do we mean the minutes for this meeting are done by the person for the next meeting, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We can provide a video file or a link to a video.
Are they still put on the web?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
And Peter, are you intending to finish up the meeting minutes for the previous meeting?
I think I'm the first alphabetically.
Okay.
Yes.
I could, if you wanted to count that meeting as your first,
Yes.
I would be next, I think. Foster.
I would be OFOS, right?
You're better positioned, I guess, for that one.
I'd be happy to do either both of them or one of them and have Chris do it.
Generosity.
Well, I figure if I'm going to do it, I might as well make a day of it. Sure, I'll do both.
Okay, thank you,
Meetings.
Peter. Is there any other new business? I guess we had the second item, which was, Peter, you mentioned that, was discussion of
Was that the
the
discussion
planning
of
for the
commu-
annual report.
the annual
And
report,
planning for the
yes.
annual report. Great.
If you would carry on there discussing what you had in mind.
Sure. So at our previous meeting, we discussed an attempt to get a more invigorated annual report, and I think there was some discussion of issuing our the last annual report that was maybe finished but never issued. So we previously identified several things that we wanted to address in the new annual report with regard to the specific. We wanted to talk about state of media in the community. We wanted to talk about state of internet in the community. That opens up a question of internet. So we are cable and telecommunications. The FCC did rule that internet is a telecommunications facility, so that would put it under our purview. I believe that that's in the court right now, so I don't know what that means for us, but I would suggest that previously the Broadband Access Committee was talking about internet, so it seems to be something that we've been tasked with by the City Council in any case.
As we're advisory at the best,
Yeah.
there's no harm in it.
Right. So state of video in the community, state of internet in the community, any emerging trends that the council needs to be aware of and how they deal with it, and the PEG reports and analysis of the value that those bring to the communities. So those are kind of 4 areas that we could give to individuals to do for the 2015-16 report. I don't remember the status of the 2014-15 report or the 2013-14 report. So maybe
I seem to recall we had one which has gotten lost somewhere, and I don't know where that might be.
well, if it got lost, it's somewhere in my possession.
Okay.
I very, very rarely actually lose something. It's just in a very large email inbox.
Right, yes.
May I suggest that for the prior year reports, it would be sufficient to do the PEG numbers that have sort of traditionally been part of the reports, which if we needed to pull again, Jake, would it be pain to pull them again, or you have them somewhere, the PEG reports that we've produced in the past?
Oh, yeah, we've got those, for sure.
And Chris, if we had to recreate, so I think, I mean, my suggestion to the commission is to, if we need to get those filed, let's catch up and file them, but let's focus on the
future.
2015, 16.
Yeah, I think that's a very reasonable suggestion. I would propose that we go with that if there is no objection.
Just so we are going to continue to do 14, 15, 15, 16 style reports, not just solid years like Jake was saying how he had changed his report to a standing year. I just didn't know if that's how we were going to continue our report.
The municipal code requires our report within a certain time frame after we receive the operator's report. If I recall, the operator's report comes out in the spring, and that's what led to ours being normally at our July meeting.
Yeah.
So that I think that, and if I recall also, the AT&T report to the ICC comes in the first quarter, and so we can look at that in the second quarter. So I think that's what led to the timing on those reports.
That's my understanding as well.
But it might make sense to treat it as a report on 2015 instead of a report on 2015, 2016.
Yes.
Since it takes some time to compile it.
Actually, this is the 2016 fiscal year. So.
Right, but the report would be on, it would be our 2016 report, but it would be on the 2015 year. The progress in the
2015 calendar year?
Calendar year.
Okay.
Chris, is it your understanding that these reports from AT&T go to the ICC on calendar year bases?
That is my understanding. I believe it's actually a June report that is filed with the
Okay.
SEC. I don't know the exact date of the release, but it is, if I recall correctly from the cover page, it's a June report.
Okay, thank you.
It covers, so the report that was released is 2015 for June, it's from 2014.
Mhm. Right.
So I guess I was thinking that we would follow that same style where our report is on the previous year, but it comes about 6 months late due to the timing of the operator reports. And any pressing trends in the next 6 months we can address as well.
So then, in preparing for the 2016, we'll do the calendar year 2015. Previous reports were done in half years, so anything that needs to be caught up should still be done in the half year?
I think the suggestion was that for the previous reports, if they're not already prepared, we just basically report on the,
The
we
PEG
forward the
reports.
operator and PEG reports.
Okay.
And then for the 2016 report, we cover the full year of 2015 with anything that comes up in the following 6 months that seems pressing. So,
That sounds right, yeah.
okay.
Is there any need to have a vote on that, or is that just the procedure where you?
I don't think we need to
No.
vote on anything.
Okay. Anything else, Peter, that you have in that area of reporting?
Well, I think that in order to move this forward, we should probably figure out who's going to do each of those
Yes.
4 sections. So it was state of video, state of internet. Operator reports and PEG reports, or operator reports and commentary. And PEG reports and commentary. I can address the things that would be easiest for me to contribute. I, on a general basis, keep abreast of developments in both the local market and nationally, about video and internet. So it would probably be relatively easy for me to at least create a draft of those 2 parts. I would ask that there be somebody else to work with to finalize those drafts.
I'd volunteer to assist with that.
Okay. Regarding the operator reports and commentary, what I'm imagining that would involve is reading the operator report and then discussing with either, there won't be time to discuss it with the other commissioners unless we call a public special meeting, which is not a terrible thing to do. So just
Well, let's talk about the timing for a second. So if the report from AT&T comes in June,
right.
Right.
I looked at the ordinance, we have 60 days. So then you have your July meeting, and then as long as you
True.
turn it around relatively quickly after that.
So we could discuss it at the July meeting and not have to call a special meeting. But in order to ratify the report, we'd probably have to call a special meeting.
Yeah.
True.
Okay, so I guess I would request that someone else volunteer to read those and address any questions that the commission comes up with, and write up the summary, the first draft summary of the operator reports and our commentary on them for 2015. Yeah, see if there's somebody who's willing to do that.
Any volunteers?
I will be glad to help. Are you saying we'd have all the operator reports in front of us and essentially write a summary, or
I think so.
touch on issues that we?
I think a summary and touching on issues either that we had or that we had asked questions about and found either resolution or issues that the council should be aware of with them. And so we'd have the reports in front of us prior to our July meeting. And then at the July meeting, as a commission, we can discuss them. And then that person's job would be to take those issues and either write them down or write them up as in the report
Okay,
form.
so we would have some consensus on what issues we wanted to highlight. Okay, yeah, I'll be glad to volunteer for that.
Great. PEG reports and commentary might be better if it, well, I don't know whether it should or should not be a PEG person, if they'd be willing.
I can volunteer for that.
Okay.
Both, I thought I had, but someone else is certainly welcome to have it.
Oh, the PEG reports?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I thought I'd volunteered to
Oh, no, that's-
summarize those.
Great.
Yeah, I wasn't meaning to step on anybody's toes. So.
No, that's okay.
You can have your alternate in case you're unreliable.
Yes.
All right, and then I'll just mention that I think there also needs to be kind of a wrangler who puts it all together
Yeah.
and makes sure that it's presentable and organizes the special meeting. And I don't want to be the one responsible for that because I've failed at that in the past. So I would ask that somebody else just crack the whip. Would you be interested in doing
It's
that?
an election year, and my county board commitments are full.
Okay.
I suppose that's a job for the chair of the commission.
Okay. I'll try to be as compliant as I can.
There's also a commissioner who's not here today.
The old assign the unwanted duties to the guy who didn't show up.
That's a sure way to get them not
That's
to
why
show
the
up.
rest of us showed up.
I was going to suggest the minutes be assigned to the last person arriving.
I can tell you that's probably not going to work out well.
Okay, have we covered that, Peter?
I feel we've at least
Yeah.
made some good progress on it.
Okay.
Can we just sort of briefly
Summarize that.
well, okay.
Go.
No, I was
What
going
did you
to
have in
throw on
mind?
top of that, just to re-emphasize that we have set up a shared email address
Oh, yes. and
so that should there be topics that people feel are worthy to include for state of video, state of internet,
Right.
we
And-
have a method for people to communicate that to everybody.
Not having it in front of me, could you remind us what that email address is? Is cablecommission at?
We'll send it out after
Okay.
the meeting. Yeah, I would hesitate to say the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And
Plus, then you get spammed anyway.
you just got, well, it's probably a public address. You would have received a message from it today, January 21st, so it should be
Okay.
at the top of your inbox also. Or somewhere in your inbox, at least.
Cablecommission at urbanaillinois.us.
Okay.
All one word, Cable Commission.
Sanford, my brain was wandering when you were saying that. Did we address all of what you brought up? Was it just a matter of talking about the address, or did you want to talk about what we're doing on that?
No, I think that's good. I mean, we have responsible people identified. We have a mechanism to provide information to everybody. I think the rubber will meet the road next meeting and the meeting after when we actually craft what's going to be in
Yeah.
the content of the report.
Yeah, so with that in mind, given that we have some stuff that will need to be done at the July meeting, I guess I'll target next meeting for a draft of the first two items. Yeah.
A suggestion I have is that with regard to minutes, we try to get those out to other commission members as soon as possible after a meeting, rather than as late as possible. It just, it makes it easier for us to have our memory straight as to what happened and to be looking forward. So if you could put some priority on that, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, I will try. Jake, do you know when the meeting is normally posted?
Sorry, could you say that again?
When is the video of the meeting normally available?
It depends somewhat on our workflow, but usually within a week.
Okay.
I had a quick question regarding the PEG reports. So I know with the discussion of how the commission is moving forward, but so when I'm working on putting together the PEG part of the report, is the continued reports from Urbana and Champaign considered not, we're not supposed to be using the staff time? Is that considered improper use of staff time, or is that something that you guys would continue to do
It's something
anyways?
we would do anyway.
Okay,
Yeah.
I just wanted to be clear on that. I wasn't
Yeah.
asking you to do something that
Yeah, no.
you guys weren't wanting
No,
to do anymore.
we'll continue. My goal with the UPTVs is to, put it on a calendar year basis and present it first to the UPTV Commission in their March meeting.
All right. Well, I'll be in contact with all of you. I'll compile, get your reports and I'll compile a whole thing then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I think that concludes our new business then, unless anybody has other items. Moving on to audience participation. Seeing no one in the audience except our representative from AT&T, we'll move on to commissioners' comments. I believe, Peter, you indicated you had some comments to share.
Yeah, let me find my notes. So, regarding the Cable Commission email thing, what I've done over the last few months is as I read articles, I've tagged them with that this might be relevant to the Cable Commission, and then I went back through them last night and just wrote a brief summary of kind of as they group together in topically. I think it worked significantly better to do that than to just try and send them out as they came through. Initially, my goal was to send them out, whenever I see an article, to send it out immediately. But I think it was actually helpful for me to allow them to batch together, and then if there was back and forth on a given topic in the media, then I was able to capture that. So the three kind of major topics that I found that were relevant to the commission and to the public and to the councils were the first was that basically internet speeds are increasing. So we would expect that, but there's a lot of concern among both the policymakers and also the public that maybe they're not increasing as fast as the public wants them to be. And I found a variety of articles. Internet speed is basically, average internet speed has tripled since 2011. AT&T in particular was found to be beating Moore's Law. Now, there's a special law for networks called, I think it's Nielsen's Law or Niemann's Law. I can never remember that. And it's slightly different than Moore's Law. So. But it's still a power law. It says that network speeds double about every 2 years versus 18 months for Moore's Law. So the takeaway, I think, is that U.S. internet speed is keeping pace with with that law. It is increasing in speed pretty quickly, but there are still concerns that it may not be fast enough. It's still not the fastest in the world when you take an average. Now, there's a variety of reasons for that. One is that we're a very big country and a diverse country with regard to infrastructure. We don't have any data on that locally right now, but it's something that I had planned to get for the annual report. You can dig into the speedtest.net site, and it will show you breakdowns of all the speed tests from the various providers for your local area. It's pretty cool stuff, actually. It's a really a lot of information can be condensed into a readable report that way. But in general, the trend is that internet speeds are increasing, and that's driven by a lot of things. One is technology, the various, so cable technology, DOCSIS 3.1 modems were finally certified in the last month, which means that Comcast will begin rolling out its multi-gigabit services over cable plant. That will also mean that cable will kind of come to par with fiber for a little while, as over the next probably 5 years, you'll be able to get the same speeds over the two technologies. It's still likely that cable will run out of capacity at some point, but it's a marketing decision about what services they offer at what prices at this point. There continue to be some issues with DSL and satellite internet with regard to whether they are actually meeting the needs of the people. I don't think that quite applies to UVerse's version of DSL, which is a fairly short range thing, and it's quite fast. But the DSL that's not directly within a few hundred feet of your nearest box, I think, is still considered not to be quite meeting the needs of people with regard to internet speeds. And lastly, New York City has a new wireless network, free wireless network for a variety of public areas. I don't know if it's the entire street map, but they're also, over the next 2 or 3 years, going to be rolling that out to all of the metro. And the speed tests that people have been doing are pretty impressive. If you have the right hardware and you're in the right location, you can see 400 or 500 megabits over the wireless network there. That is, again, free for everyone to use in New York. Be kind of cool to see that kind of thing here. That kind of dovetails with the next issue, which is about the digital divide and the trends in internet uptake. Again, this is all internet focused. The next one talks about video. The basic conclusion is that we've reached a point where everybody that wants internet has access to it, and it's now an issue of price. The barriers to entry are no longer whether people want it or whether they have access to it, but whether they can afford it. And a variety of studies found that. In addition, there were some local developments in that regard. There was an editorial in the News-Gazette about a trend for people to pick up smartphone internet instead of landline internet. And while the editorial didn't address it, that trend is also driven by price. It's driven by the fact that you already have a smartphone that's already got internet. You have that for other reasons, and adding the extra cost of a landline, which, if it's going to be fast, is still fairly expensive. That's probably the reason driving people's switching away from landlines to smartphone internet. The other is that the mayors signed a letter requesting for the FCC to improve the Lifeline service, which is a low-income subsidy for telecommunications, and they asked the FCC to add broadband to that. I thought I'd seen some FCC movement on that topic actually prior to the mayor's letter, but I couldn't find it when I looked for it, so I'll continue to look into that a little bit. The last one is that the market for video is rapidly changing. As I think we all know, last year you basically had 4 choices for TV. You had Comcast, you had AT&T, you had Dish, and you had DirecTV. In our community now, we've added ITV3, in addition, there's a whole slew of developing options depending on how you want to consume it for over-the-top internet, which is over-the-top video, which is video you get over the internet. And I'll just name a couple of them. There's things like Hulu and Netflix if you want on demand, and Amazon Prime Video, and there's also an Apple TV option if you want on demand. So that's where you use your remote to select the particular program you want to watch at any given time, and you're not tied to watching a given show at a given time. It doesn't like come on at a given time in the sense that traditional cable channels do. There are 2 over-the-top options that allow you to get really fairly traditional TV over the internet, and one of those is called Sling TV. It's from Dish Networks, and it's a pretty cool product actually. I've tried it out, and it's a very nice blending of what show is on right now, but also you can kind of go back in time. On some channels it's a day, on some channels you can only go back in time, or you can go back in time as far as a week and watch all the shows that are on there. The other is called, I think it's PlayStation View, but I may have that last part wrong. It is a Sony product, and it does have PlayStation in the name, and it's a TV product. It's focused on New York and Chicago right now. I believe you can sign up if you're in Champaign, but I haven't actually tried that. It has more channels. It has local channels. Sling TV is missing the local channels, but the PlayStation product has more channels, and it has the local channels, but it's $50 a month instead of $20 a month for Sling TV. And it has some limitations on the devices that you can use it with. They're mostly Sony devices. So that's a lot of technical detail, but the takeaway is that as a consumer, you have some pretty cool options now for watching TV not through a traditional TV provider. And the expectation is that those options will explode over the next few years. And it'll be hopefully not quite a free-for-all, hopefully more like a buyer's market. Will be, I think, what we're hoping will develop. So that was the summary of what I found on the net over the last few months.
Thanks, Peter. Are there any other?
Can I comment on
Yes.
Peter's comments and then remind everybody of one thing? So the comment, first of all, is thank you. That's exactly the kind of stuff that I was hoping, would come out from some of our stuff. And I think where this is germane to council, for example, is not just that this is good stuff for the consumer, but there's also a fiscal impact for the cities due to the loss of the franchise fees with the over-the-top, you call them?
Yeah.
So internet-based, is going to reduce the number of people doing cable subscriptions, and that has a fiscal impact. So those are the kind of things that I very much would like us to carry to the councils to be aware of. The other note I'll make, though, is something related to this email. There was a concern that I just want to pass along. So this email where Peter, for example, sent out this information should not be used for discussions among the council members because those would not be open in the sense of the Open Meeting Act. So we are using this as sort of a one-way distribution to put the information out, which would then be assembled into the packets and made available to the public also, and then to be discussed at the meetings in an open session. So just a reminder not to get into a back and forth dialogue through the email, please.
Yeah. Question, Peter. You mentioned that the FCC had been ruling internet in the telecommunications area. What is cellular service? Is that telecommunications or not?
Cellular service is a telecommunications
Is a
service.
telecommunications service.
So yeah, that's interesting that we've never even really touched on that
Yeah.
in the past.
In that case, I have just a little bit of information that I stumbled upon in the last week or so. I did notice an item in the news about AT&T has been revamping their cellular services, and that they are as I recall correctly, no longer offering their subsidized phone contract for service for a period of time, but rather going with leasing or rental of phone bundled in with your bill. And it's basically a less of a commitment sort of thing. Is that something that is in your area, Chris? Yes, yes, it is. It was called Next. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And then the other item I stumbled on actually assisting someone in buying a GoPhone earlier this week is that AT&T used to offer a $10 per month for 100 minutes option with no commitment. You could buy a phone for as little as $19 plus $10 for a SIM card. That price has now gone up to $25 per month and for 100 minutes. So quite a price jump there. I don't know what the implications are for other elements of packaging.
So my understanding is that there's a variety of options. Go is a brand, right? GoPhone is a brand.
I think it's more on lines of a service plan or a non-service plan. Yeah.
Okay, but it's not a generic term.
No, it is
Okay.
specific to AT&T.
So there are a variety of
Track phone, I think,
right,
is another
no,
such
no commitment
example.
services.
Yes.
And I think that those have been multiplying over the last few years based on something that's called MVNO, where you can create a virtual network over some other company's
Yes.
actual infrastructure. And so I know Walmart has one of those, and I think there's a few others. I would suggest that if you ran into pricing problems with one of them, there might be other options out
Yeah.
there that are lower cost, but they also might come with some negative performance. You know, each network has its own coverage maps, and they're never quite as simple or ubiquitous as you'd want them to be.
Yeah.
Actually, there's another topic related to that I maybe could ask Sanford to talk about your crazy what you've been trying out.
Oh, yes.
Now you want me to talk about it?
Oh, sure, or we could do
All
it
right.
if you wanted. I mean, if you want have something off the cuff, then that's great. Or
No,
we could talk about
that's
it later.
fine. I mean, and I think it's good, going back to the theme of the consumer has options. So I have a Google phone, which is directly from Google and rides on top of the carrier signals from the other carriers, and is priced at to me, a very reasonable flat rate of I think $30 a month, and then taxes on top. And data plans are $10 a month for 1 gig of data, and if you want 2 gigs, that's $20 a month, and on top of that, et cetera. So, and so far, I can say that for me, from a personal perspective, it's worked out very well. One interesting thing about this, going back to the internet, is that the Google phone wants to do Wi-Fi, as opposed to, it prefers to carry your conversations over the internet as opposed to through a cell signal. So being somebody who works in the basement of a very thick building, I actually get much better call quality going through a Wi-Fi signal than I did when I was dependent upon the carriers to carry my cell signal. So lots of options, lots of features, different ones for different people make sense.
Interesting. So there's one thing that we didn't address in here that we had talked about in our previous meeting, which was coming up with kind of short presentations that might be relevant to the consumer, or having dedicated meetings for a kind of dog and pony show or something of that sort. That's, I think, the term that we talked about. Or maybe we didn't talk about that in a meeting. Maybe we talked about that just between
I think
Dale
that
and
was-
myself.
Yeah, it was you, I, and Sanford, I think, talked
Okay.
about that.
which was not a violation of the Open
Right.
Meetings Act. I just want to be totally clear here. We were within the bounds. So I think those would be valuable and interesting, but I don't really know how to organize them. So maybe for our next meeting, we can come up with a plan for that, or
Yeah.
in the interim, people can suggest things that might be
I
presented.
think the topics are the biggest need, and then we can worry about organization after we have a topic.
Okay. So maybe I'll suggest while we're in opening meeting that the commissioners might send topics that they'd like to
Yeah.
see, that they think consumers might. All right. See. If the commissioners could suggest topics that they think the consumer might be interested in seeing demos of, and then we can decide which ones we can handle and which ones we can't.
I think the various over-the-top services might be a good starting place.
Okay.
Any other commissioners' comments?
Yeah, I'll do one. So the new season, students just got back to campus on this past weekend, and it sounds like Student News is going to start its live programming a little early this year, or this semester, and the week of February 7th, starting on Tuesdays and Thursday nights at 5:30. You can check out the Student News, live produced every week except for spring break until finals.
Great.
I got a comment as well. Just as note at PCTV, we are actually currently only running satellite programming. Our hard drive playback system bit the dust. We've already basically put in our request to get the new equipment. It's been picked out, and we're just waiting for the purchase to go through. So at the time we get that, we'll probably be off the air for a period of time to get back up and going, so that we can play our local programming again. Currently, we're just able to switch from satellite to satellite.
Question about Parkland stuff. Do you guys cover the musicals that you have in performance there?
We do cover some of the concerts, the orchestra type concerts. They've got a lot of the music. They have copyright agreements with a lot of that music, so that we're able to do that. But with the plays and stuff, the copyright doesn't allow us to rebroadcast them on to the channel. So we do some of the concerts that the orchestra and jazz bands and stuff do, but unfortunately we're not able to do the plays because of copyright.
Okay, interesting.
Thank you. Our next scheduled meeting is April 21, 2016, at 3:30 p.m. here in the Urbana City Council chambers. Unless there are other items from the commissioners. Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.